Hundreds of senators are now under the influence of a Sith Lord called Darth Sidious.
G'day guys, today I wanted to dive deep into the intricate web of deception and power plays that really shows how deep Star Wars can actually be. Specifically, we'll be unraveling one of my favourite scenes from the Prequel Trilogy and looking at Count Dooku's motivations as he reveals to Obi-Wan Kenobi the existence of a Sith Lord orchestrating events from the shadows in Episode 2, Attack of the Clones. I've always looked back on this scene. It's an amazing moment, and I think Star Wars could benefit more from this layered storytelling, allowing us fans to theorise and debate characters' motivations. But before we delve into Count Dooku's motivations, let's set the stage and refresh our memories. The galaxy is on the brink of war, and tensions are rising between the Galactic Republic and the Separatist Alliance. Count Dooku, once a respected Jedi Master, has turned to the dark side, becoming known as the Sith Lord Darth Tyranus. It has been 10 years since Count Dooku pledged allegiance to Darth Sidious, contributing to his master's grand plan. In this pivotal scene, he attempts to convince Obi-Wan that the Jedi Order is more complicated than he thinks, explaining they are just as much the enemy as Darth Sidious. He is very forthcoming and open, spilling the beans that hundreds of Republic senators are now under the influence and direct control of Darth Sidious. He offers Obi-Wan a chance to join him, and together they can destroy the Sith. This news shakes Obi-Wan to his core, but being the idealist Jedi and hero we all love, he rejects Dooku's offer. This moment gives us a small, rare glimpse into Count Dooku's mindset and motivations, as the movies didn't really give us all that much, but luckily we have other materials to fill in some of the gaps. So what drives Count Dooku to expose this dark secret to a high-ranking Jedi Master? So the first and most obvious reason was to spread mistrust amongst the Jedi and the Republic as instructed by his master Darth Sidious. This might sound counterproductive, but Dooku doesn't actually reveal that much information when you really look at it. He reveals Palpatine's Sith name, Darth Sidious, but with no way of connecting it to anyone, it is useless to the Jedi Council. Also, the information on the senators is a little bit misleading and vague. By saying that hundreds of senators are under the Sith's influence, he implies that they are privately and directly, when in reality, Sidious was influencing these senators in his public capacity as Supreme Chancellor Palpatine. It's a crafty move. The Jedi could have believed it, and in fact given more power to the Chancellor, as they might have believed that the system was corrupted and the senators couldn't be trusted. On the flip side, if the Jedi Council had taken information from Obi-Wan and discovered in time that the Sith they were actually hunting was in fact Chancellor Palpatine, then they would have moved against him in a similar way as seen in Revenge of the Sith. Sidious had hoped that this small bit of information might catch on and in turn lead to the justification to declare the Jedi's traitors and enemies of the Republic and initiate Order 66. The outcome is similar to what happened in Episode 3. Just the delivery of information to the Jedi Council on who the Sith actually was different, and probably a bit later down the timeline. In this instance, the Jedi were clear-sighted, and as Yoda said, join the dark side. Dooku has lies, deceit, creating mistrust are his ways now. The bait wasn't taken. If the Jedi had moved against Sidious and managed to kill him, it would make Dooku the only person holding this valuable secret weapon. It would serve his purposes either way, because it would either result in Order 66 being carried out and the creation of the Empire, or had the Jedi managed to kill Palpatine, it would make Dooku the only person who has the Order 66 secret weapon. It would have been very likely Dooku would have instructed the clones to execute Order 66 if the Jedi had succeeded. Another reason could be that Dooku wanted to save Obi-Wan from a terrible future and almost certain death. Dooku was Qui-Gon's master, and Qui-Gon was Obi-Wan's master. Dooku still had affection for Qui-Gon, as seen in the Tales of the Jedi. He was upset, even angry at his Sith master when Qui-Gon was killed. I think a small part of Dooku saw Obi-Wan as a sort of grandson, his grand Padawan. He holds Obi-Wan in high regard, even though they only just met face to face in this scene. Maybe Dooku thought some of Qui-Gon's idealism had been passed down to Obi-Wan, or maybe Dooku regrets the death of his former apprentice so deeply that he needs to save Obi-Wan from certain doom. Don't forget that it was Qui-Gon's death that snapped Dooku and drove him to the dark side in the first place. He must have cared a great deal about him. In the novelization of Revenge of the Sith, we see that Dooku asked Sidious one last time for permission to try to convert Obi-Wan to the dark side, just before his final battle with Anakin and Obi-Wan. His affection for Obi-Wan was noticed by Sidious, and also rejected, as Obi-Wan was viewed as a Jedi zealot and a true believer in the Force. Keeping in mind that Dooku was the one who commissioned the clone army, he knew what was coming. He knew Order 66 was at the end of all this. He wanted to spare Obi-Wan to the fate of the Jedi Order, and there were really only two options on the table: join me or die. The darker option here is that Dooku was trying to just manipulate Obi-Wan to become his apprentice with the hopes that he would join him in his fight to overthrow Darth Sidious. In the not so distant future, Dooku would train Asajj Ventress during the Clone Wars as his unofficial Sith assassin and also his true Sith apprentice to help him overthrow Palpatine. But Sidious sensed his betrayal as Ventress grew in strength and ordered Dooku to turn on her, which he faithfully did. This would have been Dooku's attempt at continuing the Sith rule of two, where an apprentice kills their master and takes on a new Sith of their own. Dooku had no illusions of Obi-Wan joining him then and there, but he was certainly hoping that Obi-Wan would have his eyes open to the corruption in the Senate and the influence of the Sith, and become jaded with the Senate and the Jedi eventually seeking to join Dooku. In Dooku's mind, he sees himself as a catalyst for change, a necessary force to disrupt the status quo and bring about a new order to the galaxy. There are some hints in the material out there that Dooku thought that he was the chosen one and was destined to destroy his master and bring peace to the galaxy. If Obi-Wan had joined him, he would have been a powerful ally in his fight against Sidious. But maybe Count Dooku was never really committed to the Sith cause. Maybe he believed that both the Sith and the Jedi were both systems that had to be removed, a sort of grey force user. He was an idealist and viewed politicians as corrupt and in turn have corrupted the Jedi Order. Dooku recognised that on some level he had simply traded one corrupt order for another, and realised that both systems were broken and had to be destroyed. By recruiting Obi-Wan, he has legitimacy in the eyes of the citizens of the Republic. The citizens is what Dooku ultimately believed he was loyal to. This is my favourite option and the canon I go with in my head. He was too much of an idealist, and I believe he was using Sidious as much as Sidious was using him. Although it must be said, some of his future acts during the Clone Wars were pretty evil, and maybe the dark side was corrupting him and turning him into a more traditional Sith. Overall, Count Dooku's motivations run deep. His disillusionment with the Republic's corruption, his desire for a more efficient government, and his personal quest for power and vengeance against the Jedi Order all contribute to his decision to reveal the existence of a Sith Lord manipulating events behind the scenes to Obi-Wan. Whether it was all part of a plan or his personal moves of power is something we can all think about. The beauty of Count Dooku's character is that it shows that the Star Wars universe is filled with shades of grey. The motives and actions are not always black and white, and can have a deeper purpose behind their actions. This is something I believe future Star Wars installments need to instill, to go deeper with their characters and bring some grey characters and motivations into an otherwise black and white world. This wraps up a video on an underrated iconic character, Count Dooku. What do you guys think? Was it all just a part of Darth Sidious' grand plan? Was it to save Obi-Wan? Or just Dooku doing Sith things? Or something else entirely? Just FYI too guys, some of the information here is considered legends now from Disney, but I'm sure most of you would still consider it canon in your own minds. He's one of my favourite characters and I hope we get more material on him in the future. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for listening. Like the video and subscribe if you got some enjoyment. Have a good day. See you guys. Bye.